In the brutal theater of human interaction, power is never handed to you. It is not gifted by love nor granted by kindness. It is taken through deliberate action, unshakable self-respect, and relentless emotional discipline. This is the essence of Machiavelli's wisdom. He never believed in waiting for approval or begging for affection. He understood that the world does not reward the passive, it exploits them. The moment you find yourself chasing someone's attention, pleading for their love, or overextending yourself just to be noticed, you've already lost the battle. You've surrendered your power at the altar of validation. And in that moment, you stop being a sovereign. You become a servant. Machiavelli taught that rulers must seize control. And in modern life, you are either a ruler of your own fate or ruled by your desires. There is no middle ground. Every act of simping, whether it's apologizing too much, overgiving, or tolerating disrespect, is a quiet betrayal of yourself. It's a message to the world that your worth is negotiable, that your dignity is for sale. And once people see that in you, they don't respect it, they take advantage of it. Power comes not from what you say, but from what you refuse to tolerate. It's in the silence after being disrespected. It's in the refusal to chase what's walking away. It's in the calm detachment that tells the world, I don't need your approval to feel worthy. That kind of presence can't be faked, it has to be built. You don't earn respect by being available to everyone. You earn it by being selective with your time, intentional with your energy, and unapologetically grounded in your standards. Stop expecting the world to recognize your value just because you're nice. The world sees what you assert, not what you hope for. So if you truly want power, stop waiting for it. Stop begging for it. Take it with discipline, with detachment, with a presence that says, I know who I am and I refuse to kneel for crumbs. That's not arrogance. That's sovereignty. Simping isn't just a behavior, it's a mindset, a quiet, invisible chain that binds a man to his own emotional slavery. It is the act of surrendering your dignity in hopes of being chosen, noticed, or loved. But make no mistake, love earned through desperation is not love, it's pity dressed as affection, and pity is poison to power. When you simp, you don't just offer affection, you offer submission. You put your worth in the hands of someone else and hope they treat it well. That's not romantic. That's dangerous. Machiavelli warned us those who cannot govern their own desires will be governed by others. And simping is exactly that, governance through weakness. It's the willingness to bend your values just to stay close to someone who would never do the same for you. It's over-texting, over-apologizing, over-giving. Not because it's genuine, but because you fear what will happen if you stop. That fear, that's the leash. And every time you give into it, you shrink. True power begins when you recognize that your emotions are tools, not chains. The simp is emotionally reckless, sacrificing control for fleeting attention. But the man who values himself plays a different game. He doesn't chase love. He draws it in through scarcity, strength, and silence. He does not beg for acceptance. He walks away from anything that demands his self-betrayal. The world doesn't reward the most loyal, it rewards the most strategic. And if your loyalty is unearned, unreciprocated, or based on fear, you're not being loyal. You're being used. Simping is emotional enslavement because it convinces you that love must be bought, when in truth, real love can only exist between equals, not between master and servant. So if you find yourself giving too much, asking too little, and suffering in silence, wake up. That isn't romance. That's self-destruction. The moment you need someone more than you need your own self-respect, you've already lost. Walk away. Reclaim your power. Because no matter how much you give, you'll never be respected until you stop begging to be chosen and start choosing yourself. In a world obsessed with appearances, the brutal truth is this: it doesn't matter who you really are, what matters is what people think you are. This isn't cynicism, it's reality. And Machiavelli knew it centuries ago when he wrote, "Everyone sees what you appear to be. Few experience what you really are." In the game of power, perception is everything. You could be loyal, kind, intelligent, and worthy, but if you appear weak, desperate, or emotionally volatile, that is what people will believe. And that belief shapes how they treat you. Simping fails this fundamental rule. It exposes too much too soon. It shows your cards before the game has even begun. The moment you reveal your hunger for validation, your need for affection, you become predictable, and predictability breeds contempt, not desire. People may smile to your face, but inside, they've already marked you as someone who lacks restraint, someone easy to manipulate, someone who gives more than he demands. But the Machiavellian mind understands the power of concealment. A high-value man doesn't reveal everything. He knows when to show warmth and when to stay silent, when to act and when to observe. His strength is not in what he says, but in what he withholds. That mystery creates gravity. People lean in. They wonder. They respect what they cannot fully see. In relationships and social dynamics, this is critical. Appear confident even when you're unsure. Act composed even when you're shaken. Your calm is your armor. Your image is your currency. Simping breaks this illusion. It screams insecurity and emotional recklessness. But a man who controls how he's seen controls the entire game. This isn't about faking who you are. It's about mastering the presentation of yourself, strategically choosing what to reveal and what to guard. Because in a world where people judge by sight, long before they judge by truth, your appearance isn't a costume, it's your first line of power. Build it, guard it, use it. Because when you control how you're perceived, you no longer chase power. You become it. Respect is never given to the man who needs it. It is reserved for the one who doesn't. And that's the paradox most men never understand. They chase love, approval, and attention with the belief that effort will earn them respect. But in doing so, they reveal their dependency, and nothing destroys respect faster than neediness. Respect isn't born from kindness. It's born from strength. Not brute force, but inner sovereignty, a calm, unwavering refusal to betray your standards for temporary emotional relief. Machiavelli made it clear, fear is more reliable than love. And while relationships don't demand cruelty, they do demand control. The moment you begin explaining yourself too much, tolerating disrespect, or giving affection to someone who hasn't earned it, you signal one thing: I value you more than I value myself. And no one respects that, ever. People may take advantage of it, they may use it, but they will not admire it. Real respect is built in silence, in the man who knows when to walk away, in the man who sets boundaries without drama, who gives his time and energy selectively because he understands that his attention is not free, it's valuable. Scarcity creates value. Desperation destroys it. If you give too much of yourself to someone who hasn't earned it, you teach them that your presence is cheap. But when you begin to act with measured detachment, when you stop over-explaining and start setting silent boundaries, something shifts. You no longer look like a man hoping to be chosen. You look like a man who chooses himself first. And that energy changes how people treat you. They lean in. They step back. They respect the weight of your presence because it's no longer tied to their approval. It's anchored in your own. If there is one law to live by in this world, it's this: never sacrifice your self-respect for connection, because any connection built on self-betrayal will never be real, and it will never last. Respect begins the moment you stop asking for it and start demanding it through how you carry yourself. Before you can ever lead another person, before you can command respect, attention, or love, you must first lead yourself. That is the foundation of all power. Machiavelli understood this better than most. He said, "He who wishes to be obeyed must know how to command." And that command begins not with others, but within. You cannot influence the world if you are a slave to your own emotions. You cannot earn respect if you don't respect your own boundaries. And you will never be taken seriously by others if you cannot take control of yourself. Simping, emotional neediness, overgiving. These are not just social errors. They are symptoms of a man who has not yet mastered his desires. The desire to be chosen, the craving for approval, the fear of rejection. These internal storms sabotage your authority long before anyone else ever does. Because power doesn't slip away in loud, dramatic moments, it leaks slowly in the quiet choices you make to abandon yourself. Self-mastery is the ability to pause when you're tempted to chase, to stay silent when you want to beg, to walk away when every part of you is screaming to stay. That isn't coldness, it's command, and it is rare. Because most people live on impulse, they say what they feel, do what they want, and collapse under emotional weight. But not the Machiavellian mind. The prince knows that influence is built on restraint. That power isn't about doing whatever you feel, it's about doing what is necessary. To master yourself is to become untouchable. Because once your sense of worth no longer depends on someone else's reaction, you become the one who sets the tone, the one who controls the frame. People begin to orbit you, not because you beg them to, but because they sense something unshakable in you. That's the power of self-mastery. It's not loud, it's not showy, it's quiet, steady, and undeniable. When you become the master of your own emotions, you no longer chase approval. You command it with presence, discipline, and absolute control. In a world that constantly praises selflessness and emotional giving, one truth remains brutally clear. Generosity, when misused, becomes a weapon turned against you. Machiavelli didn't warn against giving, he warned against giving without purpose. Because generosity, when divorced from strategy, becomes nothing more than emotional bleeding. Simping is exactly that, giving love, time, money, and energy, not as a conscious investment, but as a desperate offering. An offering made with the unspoken hope. Maybe if I give more, they'll love me back. But love bought with sacrifice is fragile. It doesn't inspire devotion, it inspires entitlement. The more you give without return, the more they expect, and the less they value it. Because what costs you your pride but costs them nothing in return is never appreciated. It's exploited. That's the brutal economy of human nature. We only value what feels earned. The Machiavellian mind knows this. He gives, yes, but only when it advances his position. He helps when it builds alliances, when it reinforces his reputation, when it creates leverage. He is not cold. He is calculated. And because of that, his generosity carries weight. When the prince gives, people remember. When the simp gives, people forget. This is why strategic generosity is not about withholding everything. It's about timing, intention, and balance. Give only when it enhances your image, when it commands respect, or when it sets the tone for deeper influence. Never give because you're afraid of losing someone. Never give because you're trying to prove your worth. Because true value doesn't need to be proven. It is asserted through action, restraint, and presence. A high-value man doesn't throw his resources at someone who's indifferent to him. He conserves them like a king protecting his kingdom. Every act of generosity must have a reason behind it, not just emotion. So ask yourself, are you giving to build, or are you giving to beg? One makes you respected, the other makes you invisible. And the difference between the two is the line between power and self-betrayal. Sentimentality is seductive. It tells you that your feelings are always noble, that love justifies any action, and that vulnerability will eventually be rewarded. But Machiavelli would have laughed at such thinking. Because in the harsh arena of power, sentimentality is a liability. It blinds you. It softens your edge. It convinces you to act from impulse rather than intention. And this is precisely how men fall into the trap of simping, by confusing emotional sacrifice with strength. But strength is not measured by how much you give, it's measured by how much you can withhold. The ability to pause, to wait, to resist the urge to chase or explain or plead. That's what sets a powerful man apart. Machiavelli warned that rulers must not be ruled by their hearts, but by cold calculation. And though you may not be a political prince, you are the ruler of your own life, or at least you should be. Emotional control isn't about being numb. It's about being disciplined with your vulnerability. It's about knowing when to show care and when to walk away without a word, when to speak with warmth and when to let silence speak for you. The man who cannot control his emotions becomes a puppet to them, and worse, he becomes predictable. Predictability breeds manipulation. People learn your emotional patterns and they use them against you. But the man who moves with intention, who thinks before reacting, who makes decisions rooted in strategy, not sentimentalism, that man is dangerous. He doesn't explode in anger. He doesn't beg in love. He watches. He waits. And when he acts, it's with precision. Simping is emotional chaos. It's the storm that erupts when you let sentiment overpower self-respect. But emotional control is calm power. It's what makes your presence steady, your value undeniable, and your influence lasting. So let others be guided by their hearts alone. You be guided by both heart and mind, but let the mind lead. Because in the long game of power and respect, feelings fade, but strategy endures. One of the most damaging lies men are taught is that they must chase what they want endlessly, that love must be earned through proving pleasing and persistent pursuit. But the Machiavellian truth is far more liberating. You are the prize. And if you don't act like it, no one else will believe it. When you constantly chase, overextend, and place someone else on a pedestal, you don't just lose your leverage, you lose your identity. The more you pursue someone who doesn't reciprocate, the more you tell the world, my value is determined by how you respond to me. But the man who knows his worth doesn't beg to be noticed. He doesn't flood inboxes, seek constant reassurance, or apologize for having standards. He moves with certainty, and that certainty is magnetic. Why? Because people are drawn to what they can't easily possess. Scarcity creates demand. Desperation repels it. In relationships, as in economics, value rises when availability decreases. Acting like the prize is not arrogance, it's alignment. It's choosing to believe that your presence, your time, your energy are not to be handed out carelessly, but earned. This doesn't mean withholding affection out of spite. It means being selective with who you invest in, because you know that chasing the wrong person drains you of the power to attract the right one. Machiavelli would tell you, control the frame, and you control the game. When you stop chasing and start choosing, you flip the dynamic. You become the one to be pursued. Your attention becomes a reward, not a given. Your silence becomes powerful, and your standards unshaken become a filter through which only the worthy pass. So if you've been trying to prove yourself to someone, stop, recenter. Remember who you are. You are not a beggar at the gates of love, you are the gatekeeper. Walk with that truth. Speak with it. Carry yourself like someone who doesn't need to be chosen to feel valuable, because the man who truly understands he is the prize never has to chase again. In a world where words are cheap and intentions are invisible, one thing always speaks louder than anything else: your reputation. It is your silent ambassador. It enters rooms before you speak and lingers long after you've left. And Machiavelli understood this better than anyone. He knew that the world judges not by your internal goodness, but by the image you project and the standards you consistently uphold. That's why simping is so destructive. It doesn't just compromise your dignity, it erodes your image. And once your reputation is stained with weakness, it becomes almost impossible to clean. The simp is seen as harmless, generous, endlessly forgiving, but not powerful. And when you are not seen as powerful, you're not respected. You're not considered. You're overlooked. The hard truth: people respect boundaries, not sacrifices. They admire the man who knows his worth and enforces it, not the one who gives endlessly hoping to be acknowledged. Your reputation must be cultivated like a fortress, brick by brick, with discipline, restraint, and unwavering self-respect. Every time you tolerate disrespect, explain yourself too much, or act out of emotional desperation, you chip away at that fortress. But every time you walk away from something that insults your value, every time you stay silent in strength, instead of reacting in weakness, you add a stone. This is why reputation isn't built on what you intend to be. It's built on what you consistently show. You don't have to be perfect, but you must be principled. You must become known as the man who holds the line, who doesn't fold for attention, and who doesn't need to prove himself to anyone. That kind of presence is rare and unforgettable. Machiavelli warned, "It is not titles that honor men, but men that honor titles." And the modern interpretation is clear. It's not what you say you are, it's how you carry yourself when no one is watching. Protect your name, guard your presence, and let your reputation become the armor that commands respect before you ever have to demand it. The most dangerous mistake a man can make is believing that someone else is responsible for his sense of worth. The moment your self-esteem is tied to someone else's affection, attention, or validation, you are no longer free. You've handed them the keys to your confidence, and that is the beginning of your downfall. Machiavelli taught that a ruler must never depend too heavily on outside forces to secure his power. And in your personal life, that principle is just as true. Self-reliance isn't optional, it's survival. When you need others to approve of you to feel secure, you become easy to control. You overgive. You over-apologize, you over-explain, because deep down you're afraid that without their approval, you are nothing. But that fear is the very reason you're not respected. People don't respect those who are emotionally dependent. They may use them, they may tolerate them, but they don't admire them. And admiration is the fuel of lasting influence. The man who builds himself brick by brick, scar by scar, is the man who becomes immovable. He doesn't beg for reassurance because his value doesn't fluctuate with someone else's mood. He knows who he is because he earned it. Through work, through failure, through choosing solitude over shallow connection. That's the man others instinctively respect because he respects himself first. To become that man, you must stop waiting for someone to make you feel worthy. That's your job. Develop skills, pursue goals, build confidence rooted in what you create, not who you impress. When your confidence comes from competence, not compliments, you become untouchable. Self-reliance isn't about being alone. It's about not needing someone else to hold you together. You can still love, still connect, but you never abandon your center. Because once you lose your center, you lose your power. Machiavelli's prince rules not through emotional dependence, but through strategic self-sufficiency. And so should you. Because the day you become your own greatest source of stability is the day you stop chasing approval and start commanding respect. In a world that judges more by what it sees than by what it understands, your appearance becomes your first and sometimes only weapon. Machiavelli said it plainly. Men judge more by the eye than by the hand, which means you can be brilliant, kind, loyal, and deeply worthy. But if you appear weak, hesitant, or desperate, that's what people will believe. And once that image is formed, it's nearly impossible to undo. The harsh truth is this: you don't have to be strong all the time, but you must appear strong, especially when it matters most. Simping is the ultimate exposure of vulnerability without calculation. It strips you bare, shows your hunger, and hands your power over without resistance. But the Machiavellian man knows better. He knows that power lies in controlled expression, in the ability to manage perception. You may be hurting, confused, or uncertain, but when you speak, when you act, when you walk into a room, you radiate presence, not desperation. This isn't about being fake. It's about being strategic. It's about learning when to hold your cards, when to speak with silence, and when to let your posture say everything your words cannot. People respect calm. They respect restraint. They respect those who carry themselves with quiet certainty, even in chaos. The man who appears unshaken commands more influence than the man who constantly seeks reassurance. When you show too much too soon, when your emotions overflow without filter, you invite manipulation. But when you project stability, you shift the dynamic. You become someone others watch, study, and react to, not someone they control. Power isn't always about domination. Sometimes it's in the subtle art of not flinching, in walking away with your dignity intact, in offering less than expected, in letting mystery do the talking. Machiavelli's prince understood this well. To be respected, you must control not just your actions, but how the world sees them. So in moments of doubt, remember, strength begins with perception. Even if you're breaking inside, hold your frame, because the man who appears strong is often treated as if he is. In a culture that praises loyalty above all else, few dare to speak. The hard truth: unyielding loyalty without strategy is not strength, it's self-sabotage. Machiavelli warned that a ruler must be flexible, willing to shift tactics when necessary, even if it means breaking promises. That's not betrayal, that's survival. Because life isn't a straight line, it's a battlefield of shifting alliances, unexpected betrayals, and emotional traps. And the man who clings to outdated promises or rigid emotional commitments in the face of change, he doesn't look noble. He looks blind. Simping is a tragic example of this rigidity. A man invests himself emotionally, financially, psychologically into someone or something that no longer serves him. But instead of adapting, he doubles down, hoping that his unwavering loyalty will eventually earn him love or respect. It won't. Because loyalty, when given to the wrong person or in the wrong context, is not a virtue, it's a weakness to be exploited. Flexibility is not cold-heartedness. It's awareness. It's recognizing when the game has changed and having the courage to adjust your moves accordingly. It means letting go of the relationship that's draining you, even if you once swore you'd never leave. It means stepping back from a situation you thought you wanted because now you know better. That is not betrayal of others. It's loyalty to yourself. The Machiavellian mindset values results over sentiment and understands that to preserve power, one must be able to pivot calmly, intelligently, and without apology. When you're flexible, you're hard to manipulate, you're unpredictable, and most of all, you remain in control of your fate. Because while everyone else is frozen by fear or attachment, you're moving, adapting, winning. So ask yourself, are you staying loyal to an illusion? Are you sacrificing your future to protect a promise you made in the past? Or are you willing to evolve to be water, not stone? In the end, power favors those who bend without breaking. And if you want to survive and thrive in a world driven by shifting interests and hidden agendas, flexibility isn't betrayal, it's your sharpest weapon. The greatest war you will ever fight isn't with the world. It's not with your ex, your boss, your rivals, or your past. It's the war inside you, the one waged in silence between who you are and who you pretend to be, between your discipline and your desire, between your highest standard and your lowest impulse. Machiavelli understood that all true power begins with self-mastery, because until you conquer yourself, you will be ruled by your emotions, by your fears, by your need for validation. Simping is not just a social failure. It's an internal defeat. It's what happens when a man surrenders his logic to longing, his pride, to fear, his direction, to desire. You can't expect to lead others, attract respect, or command influence if you can't first lead your own impulses. The need to be loved, to be chosen, to be accepted, these are not inherently weak emotions. But when they control you, they make you vulnerable. They make you predictable. And in the game of power, predictability is suicide. Self-conquest begins the moment you stop acting on impulse and start acting on intention, when you learn to pause instead of react, to choose silence over begging, to walk away without theatrics. It's in these small acts of restraint that a new man is born, a man not easily swayed, a man who can stand in chaos and not flinch. That man is feared, respected, desired. Machiavelli would tell you the man who rules himself cannot be ruled by others, because once your confidence no longer depends on someone's response, once your self-worth is generated from within you, become immovable. You may feel emotion, but you don't let it drive the car. You may crave affection, but you don't sacrifice your crown to get it. So if you want to win in life, stop looking outward. Look inward. Strengthen your resolve. Sharpen your mind. Reclaim your discipline. Because the moment you master yourself, your thoughts, your desires, your emotional storms, you step into a realm of power that no one can take from you. And from that throne, the world finally bends to you. In a world that constantly urges you to be more giving, more available, and more emotionally open, one truth often gets buried. Your power begins the moment you stop chasing and start choosing. This isn't about becoming cold or heartless. It's about understanding that respect, influence, and love are not earned through desperation, but through discipline. When you overextend yourself in the name of affection, when you beg for someone's time or sacrifice your standards just to be liked, you don't win hearts, you lose yourself. And people sense it. They may take advantage of it, but they rarely value it. The deeper lesson is this: you must become the source of your own validation. That means building your identity around your values, your growth, your vision, not someone else's attention. Learn to say no. Learn to walk away from what weakens you. Set boundaries that protect your dignity. Be generous, but never at the cost of your self-respect. Machiavelli wasn't advocating cruelty. He was advocating clarity about human nature, about power. about the cost of being naive in a world that rewards strength. So in your relationships, in your career, in your everyday decisions, ask yourself, am I leading with self-respect or emotional dependency? Am I being strategic or just sentimental? Because the difference between those two will define the quality of your life. When you become emotionally grounded, when your worth no longer hinges on external approval, you shift from being reactive to being in control. That's the beginning of real power, not over others, but over yourself. And once you master that, everything else starts to follow.